Good morning, everybody, and I'd just like to extend Arif's welcome to you. We're delighted to see so many people here from different parts of the world, different backgrounds, different perspectives, and it's wonderful to see you. And actually, it's always very interesting when you talk to a group of academics, is how they behave in where they sit. I notice, just as you will have in your lecture theatres and your classroom, this table here doesn't appear to be heavily occupied. Now, in any organised sense of how you would lay out the room and how you would sit, you would expect certain people to be perhaps a little bit late, and you'd leave the tables at the back for them to come into. But no, academics, people in education, and people in all walks of life, we always leave the front empty. So you followed that, and you've kept that particular tradition. I want to sort of welcome you and say a little bit about how important we see the whole area of the built environments and the industry around the built environment. And one of the sort of things that why we focus on it and why we see it as particularly important. You see, this university grew, as all universities have grown, but we grew from a particular background and a particular heritage. And that has shaped what we do today. So we were established way back in 1827 at the start of, in the UK, the first industrial revolution. So the first time people anywhere in the world worked in factories. And there, right at the heartland of that industrial revolution, is Wolverhampton. So established as a mechanics institute. From one of our campuses, just one of our other campuses, the world's first iron bridge is about 2 miles away from that campus. All demonstrating how we were at the heart of the UK manufacturing industry during that time of a massive change. Massive change. And that gave us a role. It said what we needed to do was to develop an education for people moving into a workforce that was very different, that had different challenges, that had different perspectives, different ages. So we developed a very vocational style of education. One that is about the needs of the industry, the professions, and the development of the intellect and the mind to go with it, so that you challenge and you innovate. At the same time, what we needed to do was to make sure that we gave as many people as possible the opportunity to develop a better understanding of life, a better understanding of the economy, and a better understanding of society. And we know that the more we develop individuals and the more they develop as graduates, we know a number of things about their lives. We know that they will use the health service less than others because they know how to look after themselves. We know they will spend more time on their children's education than others, preparing the generations for the future. We know they'll be less involved in the legal system as a offender than others. We know they learn more. We know they live longer. All those things which are the benefits of an education, and all those things which we believe very clearly we need to provide the opportunity for. So we have 2 strands to what we do. One which is about our heritage and work, both our heritage, and one is about the nature of our education and the work we do with professions, and the other is about opportunity, providing opportunity, and enabling people to take those opportunities. And then we look at where we are, right in the industrial heartland, surrounded by the highest density of what we in the UK call brownfield land. which is land contaminated by years of heavy industry, which has had an impact on people's lives, how their life expectancy, their health, etc. And we see our role very much about how we shape the future for our communities, making sure that we are at the heart of the issue about development of society and the value of place. And that means that we focus on certain things. So we have all this brownfield land. We also know that in the UK that there is an urgent need to build more houses. We also know that many of the construction technologies that are used today were used in the first industrial revolution, nearly 200 years ago. We know there is a significant skills gap in house builders having enough people to develop their properties. We know that there are issues about planners being able to develop brownfield sites and new sites. So we took the view that what we really need to do is to work with industry, to work with the professionals, and to really focus on how we develop our work in the built environment. And Arif will tell you that we look at this along the life cycle of a building, from the initial thoughts of how we design buildings to our new master's program in demolition, because buildings have life cycles. But we are also have a clear agenda which is about increasing the number of students who study in the area of the built environment by 60% in this university. And you've made some progress? Yeah. Not enough and not fast enough. But he has made some progress. And that's good to see. But we do that, and we graduate students in the built environment all around the world. Only a couple of weeks ago, I was out with the chartered surveyors graduating about 150 quantity surveyors in Hong Kong. It was lovely to see people from Hong Kong here. So we do this worldwide, but we said, right, we need to focus on how we grow that supply. And we need to make sure that they are industry ready and profession ready. And that means a closer partnership with them. And we need to actually put our money where our mouth is. And so they have decided that, right, in an area of major brownfield, we bought one of the largest and most contaminated brownfield sites around here. And we are turning it into a built environment campus, using the brownfield land and establishing on there a brownfield research centre, establishing on there our School of Architecture and the Built Environment in one of those old listed buildings, which when we bought it, if you pushed it, it might fall over, but it's still listed. So we're having to generate that and to do that with our planners, with our local authorities, etc. And it's about showing our students and the professions and the industry that you can do this, and we will be doing it, and this will be the innovation hub for the construction industry. Which is why I mentioned the nature of how certain parts of the trade work, and the skills and the techniques, which is why we'll also be launching our Construction Futures Initiative, which has an aim of making the construction industry moving from a wet industry to a dry industry. Big ambition, but it's only by radically transforming that we actually start to hit some of those gaps that we have. And that means that what you've got is a commitment from a university that was right at the heart of the first industrial revolution, that as we move into the fourth industrial revolution, and the digital industry, and the 5G industry, which will be located with us, that we are right at the heart of innovation, research, knowledge transfer, and the development of incubators, and asking people to be innovative. One of the great things about academics, which I never tell our finance director, is that the key thing about really successful academics is they're mavericks. They have ideas, they push at the frontiers, and what we need to do is to harness that push and to link it into industry and to make sure that they're enabled to do things. And that's the nature of what we seek to do. And that is all about mindsets and how people work and how people reflect. And that's why I'm so pleased to welcome you today. And I hope you have a really great conference. You're at the Molyneux tonight?
Yes.
Which is, for those of you who are into football, the Molyneux is the premier football stadium in the UK, or will be. And it is built on part of the University of Wolverhampton. So we have a very close partnership with the Wolverhampton Women's Football Club, and you will have a lovely evening this evening. Thank you very much indeed, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Professor Laird. So, I started here about 19 months and 23 days ago, okay? And the first thing, in my first meeting, my dean and the Vice Chancellor said, what do you think would be the future of ABE here? Where is it heading? So as the new head of school, and I said it is going to be construction futures. So they said, okay, go and define it. And then we have worked diligently. We have developed several initiatives in the last 19 months to define what is construction futures and where are we headed. Now, as a university, you know, Geoff just mentioned, we are quite proud to say that we are the only university in the world that offers a program for every stage of building life cycle, from design to demolition. Okay, so we cover everything from design to demolition and everything in between. It's a big initiative, construction futures, and the university commitment is significant given the amount of investment. So what is construction futures? You know, we started thinking about what exactly is construction futures. You know what this is? We all know what this is? Yeah? This is our theme. You know why? Because this is the hardest working resource on a construction site. Nobody works harder than the cone. Okay? It's there 24 hours. Right? Every time somebody messes up, they put a cone and walk away to rethink what they are doing. So cone is your savior. However, cone is also an excuse we use. Okay? So for those of you who are from England and who drive on M6, we have been seeing those cones for years and years. And the construction never seems to end. Okay? So what is the future if we really want this automated construction sector? The future is what I call deconification. Okay? That is the future. Somehow we stop relying on the cone and start relying on the technologies that are there to support our sector. So what do we do about deconification? And that is what the theme of this conference is what are different technologies, what are different processes, what are different areas we can work on to achieve deconification. Well, we are now on the 4th industrial revolution, and we will be the first university in the UK to get a 5G on campus. So we will have a 5G campus, first in the UK, which means, and this will start from January, and we will be using 5G to monitor the construction site of Springfield, which is going to be our new home in 2020. So University of Wolverhampton, simple statistics with 25,000 students, 2,500 staff. But of all these statistics, I think the one statistic that we are really proud of is 96.3% employability. So 96.3% of our graduates get a job or pursue master's study within 6 months of graduating, which is second highest in the UK. This is what our new campus will look like. We are investing about £110 million. It's a 12-acre campus, and we will be moving there in May 2020. I will just show you a brief video of the new building.
The Springfield campus is a 12-acre site, and it's an old disused brewery. And what we're doing here is seeking to develop the world's largest construction education campus for the West Midlands region, trying to make sure that we develop the skills and the knowledge base for the future, focusing on construction. It'll be a major research and innovation centre, one that will put the construction industry around here right firmly on the map.
We have the 14 to 19 education, right through to apprenticeships and business engagement as well. So it's not just education standing alone, but education working with business and the school sector as well.
It's about giving young people employability skills, and our aim is to produce the innovators, the designers, the construction professionals, the architects of the future. And the upshot is that 20% of our students go on to apprenticeships against the national average of just 5%.
Our vision for the School of Architecture and the Built Environment is to create a super campus. We're looking at innovation in teaching, innovation in research, and innovation in the way we translate research. The spaces will allow our students to work closely with the business partners, with their academic staff as well, so that we create work-ready graduates.
The UTC experience is very different to a traditional school. We do give the traditional academic curriculum, but it's the things that we do on top of that really make a difference. We kind of market ourselves a little bit on the school with a difference.
Teachers and the facilities and the environment is just a lot better than any other school.
Teachers push you to be a young professional. It's almost like you're not at school, you're at work.
I definitely recommend this place because it's got everything that you need to get all of your special ideas and your special creations down and created. For me, it's a 10 out of 10 because it's exactly what I need to get to where I want to be.
We know there's a national shortage of construction skills, where there is a significant amount of brownfield land which needs to be regenerated and redeveloped into housing plots, building plots. And it's bringing that in terms of our vocational education, our world-class research, and making sure that we bring those things together for the benefit of the construction industry, society, and the economy.
It's very exciting that we will have some of our graduates working in making brownfield sites ready for development and developing solutions that are sustainable and cost-effective for redevelopment.
Construction is expected to be a growth sector within the region. It's important that we lead on that in terms of the kind of young people we're providing within the workforce. So I think the idea of our mantra around innovate, design and build is really important, and it's important for us to talk to employers, ask them what they actually want, and to provide those particular skills.
We are the University of Opportunity. Our role is to give business, to give young people, to give older people the opportunity to make economic or social change in their lives. That is what this campus is about. It's an opportunity for this area to really make a step change and a difference.
So that would be our new campus in 2020. We already have a UTC, so 14 to 19-year-olds are going through their A-levels in this UTC, which is already up and running. So once we are up and running, the school is there, we will have a campus that can take a 14-year-old and move them all the way to PhD on the same campus in construction. So that is a significant commitment. Now, I know that we are running slightly late, but I need to welcome our first keynote speaker today and start the proceedings for the conference. So our first keynote speaker is from Michigan State University, not University of Michigan. Somebody corrected me. I dare not say that, right? So Professor Matt Syal from Michigan State University. Professor Syal.
Good morning, everyone. Let me see if I can turn this on. Does it go now? Oh, it's working. Good. Good morning. My name is Matt Syal. I'm a professor of construction management in the School of Planning, Design, and Construction at Michigan State University. And thank you for welcoming me here, Professor Lear and Professor Arif. I have known Professor Arif and collaborated with him on different things for the last 15 plus years. Right? This man has more energy than he should stop drinking caffeine. So I'm very pleased to be here. As he asked me to speak on a topic related to this conference, they didn't give me any directions. And I was thinking of two areas. One area is typically we think in terms of advanced technology. So my mind was going in that direction. We are doing some work with Bosch company about smart buildings, Internet of Things, connectivity, big data, all that stuff. And that was the natural instinct. And then the other area which we have been working on for the last 4 or 5 years, which is very simple area, and I felt as I talked to my team that that would be very relevant to this city, this university. That's what we call domicology. And after listening to the Vice Chancellor and Professor Arif and their plans for the new campus, I think I chose well. This will fit with that. So I want to introduce you a very simple concept. There's nothing new in that. We are trying to bring all these pieces together to define an area which we call domicology. And about the life cycle of the built environment. And my core team, 3 of us have been working together. Actually, one member along with Rex Lamore and Dr. George Burgon, one of the members is with me. Would you wave your hand, George, so everybody knows? And this area, I'm hoping I can make this work. Yes, it works. Just to give credit to the other members. We have other people on the team. The top 2 people, the bigger font tells you they're part of the expanded core team, and they're from labor relations, urban planning, those areas. And then we have 3 other people from civil engineering and supply chain management who are working with us in this area. That defines this whole area. The simple concept is, I'm from Michigan. If you know about Detroit and what has happened after the manufacturing jobs have left, and what has happened to these, what we call legacy urban cities, this is what has started to happen. Abandonment, blight, to the structures, to the built environment, which we all care about. If you walk through the city, or certain parts of Michigan, or many other cities in the developed world where the manufacturing hubs were there, you start seeing not just housing, but you're also seeing it on the commercial buildings also, right? So then you start to wonder why. and what can be done? Can there be approach to this other than the band-aid approach? Or just looking for the government dollars and let's fix this little thing and then hope nothing happens. And that got us thinking. So, when I show you these things, I don't want you to think this is another sad story about blight. I want to tell you, we thought it's an opportunity to develop a new paradigm where we look at how to solve the current situation, but also think of proactive ways for it not to happen, or how to deal with it. And that brought us all together. And as we started working in this area, I think I need to, I may have pressed too many buttons. I'll go back on my screen and I'll follow, use the arrow here. So as we started thinking, there has to be, let's look at a solution which deals with the situation now and also deals with how we can deal with it in the future. And that's where we coined the term, bringing all these pieces together, and we call it domicology. It's the study of socioeconomic, environmental, and technological aspects of the built environment cycle. That means all these pieces together as one discipline. This is kind of along the same lines of what you folks have been doing, and you have been doing very well. The whole idea of the circular economy. We like to think domicology is circular economy plus, right? Is that, George, the good way to say it? So expanding it. And there's a lot of work going on in Europe, in UK about circular economy. Some of you may know in Austria, a few months ago, they had this whole forum and conference dealing with circular economy. And we learn lessons from them. The idea is to learn from others, to add piece, and to share it back with you. So how we look at domicology, just to give you an overview first before I go into a little bit of details, is look into the domicology as pieces. Why abandonment happens. Then, what kind of policies, regulations, or incentives could be there to avoid that or to deal with that? We know buildings have to go through their life cycle, can't help it. They will be done with their life cycle. How can we design them so we can deal with them better at the end of their life cycle? And when the end comes, how to remove the buildings? Reuse is one thing. If you have to remove them, how to remove them? So various technological aspects of removing the buildings. As we are construction management people, anytime you build something or you remove something, one of the first thing comes to your mind is time and cost aspect. Right? Project management is part of everything we do. So that is another part, time and cost aspect. And if you are going to remove them in a sustainable way, then the things you remove, they have to find a home. And there comes the supply chain management. If you don't have a market to use them, there's no use removing them that way because that will become waste. And then you have to think about the workforce and training, so you have the skills to remove them. So this is the whole aspect of domicology. So I want to tell you now the story. If you think of a new area, this is an area we want to call it domicology. So 100 years from now, when my great-grandchildren talk about domicology, they can say, yes, our ancestors were involved, but nobody wants to buy. So do you know what is the milestone in acceptance of your idea or a term you have come up with? What is the milestone? What happens when you can say, yes, society is going to accept the term or the name or the idea I have come up with? Wikipedia. If you can create a page in Wikipedia with that name, that means you have arrived. So after we worked for 3 years, we just tried to create a page in Wikipedia. And they said, get lost. Politely, but they said, get lost, because this is not a term. They said, first, work on this term, publish, and slowly have people accept this term. When enough people have accepted, there are enough references, then come to us. I'm giving you a simple way of telling story, but it's a part of getting an area accepted. So we went on the quest, and we went through, initially publications don't want to use the term, so we went through various publications, related terms, where we slowly started to put things there, even including a good journal like Journal of Cleaner Production, which is considered to be high impact. We were able to put a work we did in there and put a key word called domicology, because this is part of the research we did. So we did bunch of these things. We were able to get some funded projects, and as a matter of fact, we are waiting on a project from NSF. It's under review, dealing with domicology. It's going through there. So we went through some. Produced some theses and new courses, those kind of things. Then we were able to convince our university to approve a permanent number for a course. And it's not easy, but finally now we have a course approved, PDC 403, Introduction to Domicology. We got the domain name, all that happened. So then came the big moment, couple big moments. Two things happened recently. Now everybody started to accept the term domicology. And it's not just the term. The idea of bringing all these pieces together, taking people away from their compartmentalized mindset. Even the funding agencies, sometimes they get caught in compartmentalized, universities get caught up, faculty gets caught up, bringing them into a bigger envelope. So two things happen. How many of you know this articles? It's an online publication called The Conversation. Anybody knows? The Conversation is the largest publication where all academic-related people are invited to publish articles, not research papers. And most newspapers, most NPR, TV, radio stations, they get their articles from here. Even on the weekend editions of New York Times, or those people, when they get their filler material for weekends, they get it from there. So after 1 year of work, the Conversation agreed to publish our article called Domicology. It finally came out on November 19th. If you don't know, you should check out theconversation.com. It is the largest, it's in UK also, where the academia, one of the writers has to be from academia. And this finally got published on 19th of November. I have to tell you that Michigan State University people since 2012 have published about 200 articles in that. Within 2 weeks, it shot up at number 12. Got 83,000 plus reads. That tells you the need for this area. 83,000 reads is a large number for any article. And last time we looked, San Francisco Chronicle, a couple of newspapers, many websites have picked it up. That was one. And recently, American Society of Civil Engineers, the Journal of Architectural Engineering, accepted it as a forum paper. Forum paper means, which is a new area where they want people to think about how this area will develop and others to work in that. So that was our journey, just to give you an idea. So now we are at this junction where we think people understand. Now we'll go and set up the Wikipedia page, right? So we have arrived. So let's talk about the work involved in that. The journey of getting it accepted or developing our work, bringing the team members in there was one aspect, now the work. If you look at the current cycle of property ownership and abandonment, this is what happens, at least in the US. And I'm sure it is not much different than what is happening in your part of the world. Property owner constructs the property. After, for whatever reason, The owner abandons the structure. There are many reasons, we'll talk about that in a minute. And then in the abandoned structure, nobody's there to take care of it, it turns into blight. And when there's a blighted structure, a cycle of community decline starts to happen, right? And then who's left with holding the bag? The government. When the government is left holding the bag, that means taxpayers. The tax money comes in and you do the cleanup. And that's the process which we went through, are still going through in Michigan, in Detroit and some of the other cities. So that's what the cycle happens. It is everywhere. In US, just to give you some numbers, there are about 6 million homes which are currently vacant and not being marketed for sale as of 2016. 226,000 were in Michigan. About 40% of vacant homes are located in 10% of census tracts. Tells you those were the industrialized centers or states, right? And about half of our abandoned homes are in urban areas. This is important because most people think that the abandonment and blight only occurs in cities, which were manufacturing hubs. But not true. Even in rural areas, there is a lot of abandonment and blight. So about half the homes in Michigan are in urban areas. Half are not in so-called urban centers. Not only homes, you know what is happening to malls, thanks to Amazon and online, those kind of things. 24 malls have been shut down in the last 4 years, and other 60 malls are on the brink. It is estimated a few years ago that 1/3 of all commercial properties are vacant in Detroit area. And you can imagine some of them will start falling into traveling towards the blight side of things. So if you look at not just Detroit, this gives you a sense of different parts of the country. And I'm sure you can have numbers like that in UK also. When we drove around a little bit in this city and Professor Arif was giving us the history of this city and the manufacturing background, you can find similar kind of things here. So the numbers are everywhere. So let's look at some of the effect, the economic cost of abandonment, right? We are now picking on the studies done by others, just to give you an idea. How the price gets affected, right? If you are in the vicinity of an abandoned property, people have done studies to show how much the property value goes down, even if you have vibrant neighborhoods or other areas around that. The distance, you have to be far away from that not to have that effect, right? Right now, it has been estimated if all the abandoned homes in US are removed, it will cost about $70 billion. Good size price tag, right? So the property values near brownfields are 10% lower. This is where your property values are. And within 1.5 mile radius increase by at least 10% when a brownfield parcel is redeveloped. And I'm sure that would be a wonderful study for you guys as your new campus, which is a brownfield, right? As you're going to redevelop, you should charge tax from people who are surrounding that. Tell them your property value will go up as we redevelop. But that's what happens. Look at the health part, right? Abandonment, and when you remove, then during demolition, lead and asbestos are the prime concerns. Even with Baltimore protocol, with all the science, all the water, wet demolition and all that, it has been useful, but still you see cases. In just this year, some demolition in Detroit was halted because suddenly they found that lead levels in children's blood was very high because the amount of demolition, despite all the precautions being taken. So there's a health cost there. Environmental cost, you know all the effect on landfills, I don't have to tell you that. There are some numbers, 165 millions of construction and demolition waste was generated as per a few years ago. 95% came from the demolition, and it is C&D waste accounts for 2/3 of all domestic waste generation and 21% of all landfill waste. That tells you how much our industry contributes to the landfills, right? Now this is an interesting fact. And my colleague, Dr. Berglan, I think he's going to talk about it tomorrow because he's working in the area of timber construction and wood harvesting. About 14.5 million tons of wood in landfill comes from urban areas annually. That is more than the amount of timber harvested from national forest each year. Just to give you a sense of number, how much we throw away. So if you look at a typical concept of circular economy or typical concept of how you can do deconstruction, you can salvage or reuse, this is a typical cycle. Do the deconstruction, you can reuse the material or you can recycle it, repurpose, process it, and reuse it. If you don't do deconstruction, you can demolish it and send it to the landfill. We want to add another piece to that. Right? This is a good cycle, wonderful cycle, we all support that, but we need to add a slight twist to that. The twist we are trying to add is the concept of reactive and proactive. Don't already plan for that, be proactive. So the reactive part we all know. We learn to cope with the currently abandoned structures. Sometimes we don't know, we don't really have a plan for things we are soon going to be that way. We feel them coming that way, but we don't know what to do with that. You know, for example, malls in the US, you drive around and even you don't have to be a built environment professional. You drive by there, you can tell, hey, this is going down. This mall is not going to last. But we don't have a plan. But when it happens, then we will worry about it. So, and there's no systematic way to find value in the obsolete structures to reduce the cost of removal. We don't have that. So we are saying think proactively also. Just embrace the life cycle thinking for all future structures. Take steps, policies, incentives, regulations to stop future abandonment. And also ensure in advance the financial resources needed to remove the structure. As many of you know, I know this is in US, I'm sure it is definitely here and in Europe. If you want to build a cell tower, right? Today if you propose a cell tower, do you know that before you can put the cell tower up, you have to supply a bond or insurance that when the life of the cell tower is over, that it will be removed. It won't be left there. Right? Did you know that? So there is I don't know about here, but in US, that's the system. You cannot put a cell tower before giving a guaranteed amount, bond, insurance, or cashier's check, whatever it is, that when the life is over and you're done, or you abandon the cell tower, it will come down systematically. Nothing will be left there. Why not do the same thing with buildings? So that you have resources, so you're not stuck with taxpayers' money. These are some of the thinking ideas. We'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So we, like all good academics, we came up with the expanded model. And there we said, we need to think in terms of not just reactive domicology, we also think of proactive domicology. And think in terms of all the inputs going in and what outputs we get out of that. Of course, we have our demolition cycle. Unless, of course, within demolition also, please remember, there's always some selective demolition and recycling. It's not just 100% sent to the landfill. I don't want to say that, but a big part of that goes to landfill. So I think that's the thinking we want to bring to the table. Both proactive and reactive things are what inputs and outputs you're going to get. So as we had a big gathering, folks like this brought experts from every area, from academia and industry, and we wanted to define these research areas. And we also wanted to define for the benefit of ourselves and for the benefit of the university, for the benefit of our colleagues from other areas who were not sure to join this thing. So we had a research forum where these are the topics we defined. So some of the topics I'm telling you, the parts of the ecology, also came from them. Our topics were why abandonment happens, all the policies, regulation, incentives, technological solutions, time and cost, and we talked about focus area goes to which field. We had a need to define that for our benefit and the benefit of our university and for the journal field overall. So these are the areas, as you can see, which areas will take lead in defining or working and researching in these areas. And then we also define what are the other fields we need to engage. Not a complete list. We'll welcome your comments or inputs. I'll be happy to leave this presentation, and if you want to get, I'll be happy to have you get copies of these presentations. And if you have any input that fields we missed or what areas could take a lead, we'll be happy to look at that. So look at these areas, and I'll go through one by one some of the details in this area. Design for deconstruction reuse, number 5, 6 is market and supply chain, 7 is workforce skills. So these are the areas which we are trying to bring to the table to take lead in these areas. So just some quick slides for each of these areas. Why abandonment happens? Many reasons. These are just some of the reasons we think of. Either the social reason, and you can go through the list which makes sense to you, economic reasons, government reasons, and other reasons. Any of these reasons, not just manufacturing, because that's a very convenient thing we talk about. Manufacturing jobs have left, abandonment happens. It could happen for many reasons. I have to tell you that one of my students, which is here, he came to us as a Fulbright fellow from Afghanistan. And he wanted to work in this area for his thesis because he said, in my country, because of war, there are so many buildings which are left and turning into blight. That was the reason. And that's what he wanted to study. How to, and he says we have the greatest need to reuse every brick, every piece of the building, how to take it down. So whatever reason, these are the various reasons we need to recognize. I don't have expertise in majority of these reasons to speak intelligently, but my colleagues have, who have expertise in these areas. So we need to recognize these cause abandonment. Different policies discourage people leaving their properties, incentives for deconstruction and salvage. Like I said, insurance are bond to secure end-of-life removal, similar to cell towers. Let's talk about the parts which we deal more, removal process and technological aspect. You all know there's a demolition part of things, right? It's generally equipment intensive and quick. And the deconstruction part, where you deconstruct a building, and so you can salvage the material. Selective, careful disassembly of building. It's generally a lot more labor intensive and takes much longer. So remember these pieces in mind. So as you know, just some pictures, these are the deconstruction, and these are selective. Demolition first, this is selective deconstruction. So some of the areas we are working on, I just want to give you a quick taste of things that we are looking at role of automation and deconstruction. My colleague just told me that one of his thinking about automatic de-nailer is going to become a project by our mechanical engineering students. So we are looking at automation, the assessment part, these are the technological aspects for deconstruction, doing the deconstruction part, doing the scanning and sorting part, and doing pre-process and shipping part. How to automate the process. That's one area we are looking at. Then design for deconstruction. The idea is very simple. Design the buildings in such a way So it includes provisions for the reuse of building components at the end of structure's life. So you can take it apart without damaging it. It's as simple as that. Right? It makes it easy to reconstruct and salvage material and components. That's a whole area which is growing. Some call it design for deconstruction, some call it DFDR, design for deconstruction and reuse. Right? That's the concept, the modular design, standardized connections, those kind of things. So it could be taken off without destroying it and can be reused. If you look at workforce, one of the areas we are thinking of, that what are the potential roles if this whole idea of deconstruction and domicology takes in? One of the reasons it will be successful if there are people to do that work. You cannot just say, I will deconstruct this building rather than demolish it if you don't have the expertise. So we are looking at what kind of possible job titles will be there. So that's actually one of the things we are proposing to National Science Foundation. We are in the process of. That these are the various job titles or various skill levels which you will have to develop if this whole area were to be successful. And we'll have to train people. We'll have to create programs at what we call community college level, which is a 2-year associate degree level, at the 4-year level, or at the vocational training level. So these are some of the areas we are looking at that. To give you an idea, just a case study, people have been working in this area. Maryland Department of Corrections have a deconstruction program, right? I see some of you shaking your head, so you know about that. Right? They constructed a Maryland House of Correction, and these were the results came out, good results. They recycled 99% of the building structure. Recycled 4,000 tons of steel and over 1,000 tons of concrete. Right? Only 126 tons of waste was sent to landfill. This was the job skill part. 150 inmates received job skills training in an area where there is more demand, less people when they get out, become productive members of the society. So this whole area, there are ways to approach that. And all reasonable equipment for salvage, for state reuse, it reduced the actual cost, which was half after demolition estimate they got. With all the money back, all the incentives, everything, the cost was about half. So that brings one very critical part, which I want to spend a couple minutes on. Make sure I'm in time, yes. Is the cost. One of the problems which I will challenge all of you, so if you have students who want to work in that, let's look into defining the cost of reconstruction. There is, as you all know, we work in construction management. They are very well laid out, systematic approach to cost of construction, estimating the cost of construction. There is a fairly well laid out system to estimate the cost of demolition, but the cost of deconstruction is not well defined. That's the area I would ask you to do. Because demolition, we know the cost is equipment, loading, hauling, disposal fee. Deconstruction is more labor intensive. So I just want to give you 3 very quick case studies, not our studies, we found from literature. That tells you how much the idea of cost is all over the board. This was one study. Not going into detail, typical, I think, 1,500 square foot house, and they did a deconstruction and a demolition, right? And they found, and they carried a lot of donation value and the tax savings. You notice, they thought all the material has a value of 88,000, and the tax savings, the incentive is part of that when you do deconstruction, over $24,000. So they came up that if you demolish the house, it will cost you $10,000. If you deconstruct the house, you will pocket $300 in your pocket. That was one side. Sounds attractive. Then found another study. That was one end. Then this was in the middle. Another study, which says deconstruction costs about $16,000, demolition costs about $16,000 with salvage, tax saving. So they come even. Right? because one of the argument people gave is deconstruction is going to be very expensive. So that was another study. Then there was another study which made a little bit more sense. About 1,500 square foot house, and they said the cost of demolition is $5.36 a square foot, and deconstruction is $6.47 a square foot. But they say salvage value gets you back $3.28 because of deconstruction. If you take all the amount, it's much cheaper. But they said, no, it's not very practical to think that all the material you get out of that you can salvage and be able to donate and get paid for that, or tax saving for that. So they said, let's only take 50% salvage, and it still comes out cheaper. So that, as you can see, based on these studies, the numbers are all over the board. And that's something we started thinking about. So I want you to think in terms of that. I think we can get industry and government to buy into deconstruction a lot more if we have well-defined numbers. The cost numbers have to be well-defined. One of the things we did, we worked on a cost prediction model for deconstruction. We used case-based reasoning, and we are building that, where we looked at these are the various input variables which will go in the case-based reasoning. We use Python-based language model, that's what we are developing. And we put database of, we found case studies, few case studies where we have exact where deconstruction was done, and we followed their cost, and we put that based on an input variable. And right now we have 9 case studies in that. And then we took the 10th one where we knew the actual cost and we compared. We got about 70% match, case-based reasoning. More case studies you have, and most match you will have. And this one we had, the actual cost was about $20. Gross cost, net cost was $16. Our prediction model gave 1544 or 1351. The difference is getting less. When we had 3 case studies, the match was far apart. When we had 6 case studies in the model, match was better, 9 case studies better. We hope to add more to that. But that is one approach to see the cost prediction of deconstruction. Let me talk a couple minutes about time aspect. That's the cost. Time, it's a time consuming as compared to demolition, deconstruction. That brings challenges in acceptance of deconstruction. Why? If you live in a house and in your neighborhood there's an abandoned house, there's a blight, you want it to be gone as soon as possible. If the city allocates money to remove that house and they say there are 2 options, one is we can demolish tomorrow in a day and take everything away in a couple of days. Second thing, we'll spend next 10 days piece by piece deconstructing it. Which one will you choose? You want it to be gone tomorrow. So time is another part which we have to think about. And the non-availability of workforce, because that adds to the time if you don't have trained people. Just to give you an idea of the time part, we had 2 case studies in Lansing. I just want to quickly point out, not going in details. Similar kind of houses, 1,100 square foot, 1,232 square foot. This took about 40 worker hours to demolish it. This took about 260 worker hours to deconstruct it. That brings home the point of time. Right? Just a couple other ideas, supply chain. You have to think in terms of markets, availability, transportation, reselling outlet, codes and regulation, online marketplaces. If you're able to deconstruct salvage material, you have to have a proper supply chain. So it is available where it can be used. You have the reselling system, and that's what we are working with the supply chain management folks to try to work on that side. So, thank you very much.
Now, we can take 2 or 3 questions. So, Paul, you had a question.
Yes, sir.
Could I just ask how some of the additional concepts feed into the sort of cradle concepts?
What concept?
Cradle to cradle.
Cradle to cradle. Yes, it is very much in line with that. is cradle to cradle concept. We are absolutely part of that. We are just adding, making it plus on top of that. Because we are saying cradle to cradle we have to follow, but we have to be proactive also. So we don't let to abandon it. And we have to think of sociological aspects also. Absolutely, design. That's what we are supporting.
Big part.
Okay, and also the case studies, with those that are the sort of similar projects to the domestic building that you showed some of the illustrations.
Right.
Very similar projects.
Similar things. And that's the case. When you have to find case studies. We have started to see more deconstruction happen in the US. And folks like us are pushing for it. And when that happens, we want access and we want to collect as much data we can, because then only we can build the case properly. But there's still yeah.
May.
Thanks for a great presentation. When you were talking about deconstruction and automation and deconstruction, I just wanted to bring up another practice which is gaining more acceptance, and that is selective deconstruction,
Right.
selective demolition, where you're not demolishing the entire structure but just part of it. A good example of that where automation works very well is hydro demolition. Where you use pressurized water to remove corroded concrete, but you want to leave the reinforcement intact, so you can pour over a new concrete over it. And that works very well for bridge decks or reinforced concrete walls. Does your database contain?
We are looking at that also. First of all, we recognize, like I quickly said, demolition is not all 100% going to landfill. Because most demolition contractors are first to selective demolition or deconstruction, you call it, and recycle the material, whatever salvage they can get, and the remaining goes away. And we are definitely looking at that. There are some examples, like concreting, there are some examples for selective demolition. Some wood also, there are some examples. What other area, first?
Well, wood is, and that's what I'll talk about tomorrow. Wood is one of the biggest challenges because when we do selective demolition, typically selective demolition means the wood remains behind. And when you look at quantity, just in Michigan, we have over 1 billion board feet of potentially salvageable lumber, which is in that other pile that's left behind after selective work. So a lot of my work is focused on finding efficiency through automation to change that picture on wood.
Yeah. Also remember, I have to add that there, we talked about design for deconstruction. If the buildings are designed with that in mind, it makes it easier for selective demolition, right? And automation get to play a lot more role. Good, I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Again, thank you very much, Professor Syal, for your presentation. Adopting a different approach from traditional, looking at modular, you have a design for manufacturing assembly. Should we not be then thinking of design for manufacturing assembly and deconstruction?
Yes, and modular design, design for manufacturing works very well in that thinking. Very well in that thinking. And a lot of time, even in the traditional design and building, you can bring those some thinking and components in that. And that works very well with that. Good point, thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
Just one more. One of the questions there was really about how we encourage architects and designers to sort of build for deconstruction. So what have you found in Michigan? Is that sort of, is that being encouraged? Are architects resisting this? Because the demolition contractors that we sort of educate on the masters, they'll say we've never invited to design feasibility stage. Right. And that's their holy grail to be involved in the advance.
First quick answer is it's not easy. Working with design community to change some of the ways. One good thing happening for us is Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has taken on this cause. And they are strongly promoting design for deconstruction. Publishing case studies, publishing manuals, making it easier for people to adopt even small pieces out of that. As simple as if you want to put siding on the house, they're saying don't nail it, use these clips. So that when it's done, you can just take the siding off. So they are trying to help, but I would agree, it's not the easiest thing to work with them. Or giving helpful material. As you know, I mean, in our system, the forceful regulation does not work very well. So let's say nudging, helpful material, that's correct.
Thank you, Prof. One major question about reasons why abandonment happens seems to be, especially in developing countries, political instability. What is it? Political instability. When people change government, the new government seems to abandon the ongoing project that was started by the old political party, whatever it is. Where does that find place in your reasons for demolition?
Did I understand? You're saying how?
You can come forward.
Come forward, please. I don't want to, since you talk political stability, I don't want to answer the wrong part. I'm on record.
Well, I was talking about in developing countries, for example, one of the reasons I was thinking about the abandoned project in Nigeria, for example, and one of the reasons is political instability.
One of the reasons is political.
There was an abandoned project. If you change government in the developing country, most times if you have party A, the political party A going on with the project, and for whatever reasons there is a change in government, the tendency is to abandon the ongoing project and start their own. So I'm asking whether that find a place in your reasons for.
You know, if I understand your question, see if I'll try to answer that. Part of it is also convincing the government that's a good idea. It's a money saving. Sometimes you make the case because of environmental part. Sometimes you make the case because of practicality part. So if you talk about the developing countries, there you can make the case much easier with the reuse of material. And irrespective of the political climate, you can make that case. Am I getting the question right? And there, that's how you make the case. And then the government can also help either use strong regulation or encourage or nudge it. And a lot of time, I believe in some of these things, it helps to have a couple case studies and to show the benefits. Because if people see they can either reuse the material or they can get tax incentives or they can get publicity or better market share, there's a better chance for this to happen. And I think there's a stronger case in developing countries where there's a lot more need to reuse the material.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation again. Just to say that the challenges we're finding here is the classification of the industry, domestic, residential, commercial, and the like. So is this something you're looking at from now? Because they have different challenges. Even within the residential, we've got like social housing, privately owned. So is that the case in the States? And are you sort of looking at it from that angle from now? Or how are you approaching it?
We are looking first in the US system. We are looking both at housing and commercial side, all structured, right? But we are first looking at the US system because we have to find an approach within our system because we feel there is not a proper, well laid out approach. But the same thing applies to international level in all societies. That's why we are here sharing this with all of you. So you can take these pieces and apply in different societies are different. Our focus is in domestic, housing, and commercial. Right now, commercial.
We talked about the price rising if there is abandoned property being redeveloped or the price going down.
The price rising up.
Yeah, if abandoned property is there, then the price goes down, and if it's regenerated, then price goes up about 10%. But what could happen, if there is an abandoned property, there might be possibility that there might be costs to the economy, for example, related to the mental health of the people living around, or social costs to the economy. Have you looked at that area as well?
We have not, but we are looking at that. Part of our team who is into community and economic development, I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you, but definitely they're looking at that because the whole idea is not just having a blighted structure, whole idea is a domino effect. How does it affect the social well-being? How does it affect the crime? How does it affect the school system and then the families liking that area? I think it's a very complicated area. We have a group of people, if you notice, one of our core members is from community and economic development. Of course, we are looking at that. That's an important part, but I don't have the great answer for you.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I want to ask how you incorporate this to engineering design, because currently engineering design, we look into the codes, the standards, on how to come up with a building structure, and the focus is actually cost profitability, not necessarily in the area of decommissioning.
When you say business model for engineering design, what do you mean?
What I'm talking about is engineering design focus on constructability. How can it be constructed? The focus doesn't go beyond the constructability as demolition comes in play from your studies. So how does your study incorporate it to the correct design codes that are available? Is what I'm trying to find out. How do you consider this?
I think that you brought up a point of building codes. And that's always a $1 million question, how to make things happen. I think the process, once you successfully show how things are done, and you have enough substantiation, I think it's possible to engage people in that area and make changes in codes. I'll give you an example. Many years ago in the US, people wanted to remodel the old buildings. And when they wanted to remodel the old buildings, they realized that, for example, the width of the walkways or the width of the stairs were not matching with the current code. And they were asked to demolish the whole thing and rebuild those things. And then people said, I'd rather go build somewhere else. I don't want to, and those buildings were lying vacant. And that led to a movement many years ago to develop what we call an existing buildings code. And now we have it. So we have a new construction code and we have existing building code. So if you take an old building and you want to remodel it, it gives you a lot of allowances to refurbish or remodel the building, rehabilitate the building without meeting the current code requirements. That's just an example. What we are talking about is a much more simple and logical way. Because when you talk about design for deconstruction, and the things we are talking about already exist, you really don't have to make any changes other than some minor changes here, there in the code, because they're already acceptable for design. Like the gentleman said, for design for manufacturing, many of those concepts are there. If you look at the houses being built in the factory, whether they are manufactured housing or modular housing, those already meet the code. A lot of those things do not come to site construction because of the social thing. People think, oh, I don't want to bring that there. That is not my site construction. So I think it's, in my opinion, it's less of a code issue, more of a societal acceptance issue, more of acceptance by designers and contractors issue. That's what I think.
Okay, so that's the last question. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation, Professor. One question from my side is, you talked about the collaboration between the deconstruction contractors or the architects or the designers. What my thing is, there is an aspect before the deconstruction as well, which is the construction phase. So what would you say on this, like coming up with a waste efficient design, which would only be possible if we have a collaboration between the designers and the engineers? So if you can include, is there any way to include this aspect as well within the deconstruction model?
I think that would work very well if you could. You know, we have we always used to have to think of design and then construct, right? And now we have design build thinking. Would be a great idea if we have a design deconstruct thinking, right? And that's what we are promoting that through also. Because that thinking will make great sense. But part of it will be like the earlier folks we were talking about this, is bringing those simple ideas which already exist in different aspects of built environment into designer's mind. Whether with the help of nudging from the government, with the help of helpful studies we have, with the help of owners who are going to build a building there, demanding that. There would be a great collaboration if the designers work with deconstruction, or deconstruction people come to the table during the design side. And that would be a great collaboration, bringing those people there. Maybe like we talk about construction managers coming at the design time, giving the constructability thing, the deconstruction people also bringing them in there. I think that would lead to a great way of collaboration in the right direction. It's a good idea.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Syal. Well, that was a very informative presentation. Now, just to give you a history, you know, in 2002, my mentor, Dr. Mike Mullins, introduced me to Professor Syal. And I asked him, I said, who is Professor Syal? Okay, at that time, it was 2002. And he said, he's like a mailman, he always delivers. Okay, so, and you can count on him delivering something really excellent in research. And I have known him since then, and you know, whenever I hear him, there's something new and unique about your presentation, and you are on the cutting edge. So thank you very much for coming to our conference. Now we have tea, coffee, and snacks.